that's an act of anarchy. That's not really moving anything forward.
I'm here today in beautiful Victoria Park, downtown Cobourg. And as you know, last week Rebel News launched the Save John A petition in wake of the culture of wokeness and the cancel culture mob who have been seen vandalizing and destroying, quite frankly, Sir John A. statues and memorabilia nationwide. So I'm going to head out here in the park today and see what people think. They remember Sir John A., if we should remember Sir John A., and how tearing down statues helps reconciliation. Do you know who Sir John A. Macdonald is?
Absolutely I do. He was a great prime minister. I think he was probably responsible for Canada being what it is, through the railway and everything. But I always feel like all people that lived 100, 150 years ago, they were creatures and people of their time. So I think at that time he did the best he could. If you now put him in a yardstick with what happened to, Aboriginal people, what happened to this and that, I don't think that's fair, because we cannot rewrite history. He definitely was not the kind that you would say he was a pariah. I would say he was a great man.
Well, like any politician, he did one or two things wrong, but all in all, he did well for a country. He was a father of a country, and I think we should honor the history of him.
Do you have any thoughts or opinions on tearing down his legacy or the history that he brought to the country we now know as Canada?
Well, I think anything they do with something like that is the legacy of the country, should be something that the country agrees to do. And so it would take raise some awareness about who he was and what people think is bad or good, and base your decision on that. Same way they base their decision on why putting the statue up in the first place was important. Why taking it down? Why is that important? So rather than just tearing it down, I mean, that's more like, that's an act of anarchy. That's not really moving anything forward. Just gets a lot of people upset and angry. Doesn't really help raise awareness about who he is, because why did they do that? Sure, he did some things that were wrong. Well, so does everybody.
I'm very much against that, because you're trying to rewrite history under perhaps some rules and what we think now. That's not fair. How far do you want to go back? 100, 200, 300 years ago? Every person in every country could be criticized. And as I say, how far do you go? So I don't think, and I find it's perhaps a small minority, and a small minority trying to foist their views onto the majority, who in many cases are the quiet majority. That's not right either. That's either called vandalism or hooliganism. So, I wouldn't come down and throw these people in jail, but we cannot have, it's sort of a start of a little bit of anarchy and mob rule. I'm not saying they're necessarily anarchists or mob rule people, but it has a flavor of that. And I don't think in Canada particularly we want that.
I just think that everything should be left as it is, because history is history, and that's what we learn from.
If we erase history, you'll never know. I think we should keep it. He's part of our history. They're doing the same thing in the States. They're removing some of the symbols that represent their history, and they shouldn't do it.
I was born in Germany. We barely got through the war. There were many bad times with Hitler, Holocaust, Stalin, and the whole thing. Yeah, how do we learn from it? We don't revere any of these people, but to say it didn't happen or to shove it under the table would be really wrong, because what happens if, and we have in the world enough tin pot dictators that are coming up. So we better look back at history and try to assess the good guys and the bad guys, more or less. You can't differentiate that succinctly.
What would your response be to the cancel culture mob? Do you have a message or a word of advice?
Oh, I'm not sure their heart is in the right place, that they really think things through. I think it is what you said, a mob, and that they sort of follow the crowd, and are they doing it for the right reasons?
Do you have a message for the vandals that think we should remove his statues across Canada?
Don't do it. That's all. Just don't do it. We need it. We should have them.
I agree that we should all have the right to protest and stand on the corner and speak our piece. There's nothing wrong with that. And sometimes we get complacent with things, and we need people to raise the awareness and say, hey, did you know this is going on? Well, no, I didn't. There's nothing wrong with raising a little ruckus once in a while, but violent reactions never really come out well in the end.
Do you think that tearing down statues helps with reconciliation?
No, I don't. And I don't think that there's enough knowledge of what is good for reconciliation to be able to just go out and do things like that.
As a country, do you think that we need to be unified the way that Sir John A. envisioned Canada now more than ever?
We should. That's why he built the railroad, to unify the country.
So I had to increase my surface area a little bit this afternoon in downtown Cobourg. It was quite difficult, actually, to find people willing to A, voice an opinion, and B, have it on camera. So it seems to me that some Canadians are maybe just too polite. Merely having an opinion is wrong. And if you are firm in your stance and you attempt to voice it, well, then you risk harsh judgment, and people are not comfortable knowing that. So I was lucky enough to get a few people on camera willing to have an opinion and have it recorded and consequently published. So hopefully that boosts the morale for the Save John A. petition, which again can be found at savejona.com. With Rebel News in Cobourg, Ontario, I'm Tamara Ugolini. And don't forget to head on over to savejona.com to sign our petition in response to the cancel culture mob who is destroying and tearing down statues nationwide. That is savejona.com.